So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar where our panel of experts will give you their thoughts on how to create a workplace fit for the future with cloud voice. So rather than introducing our panel individually, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves while answering this very key question. The modern workplace is fast becoming a popular phrase, but how would you define it? What makes a workplace modern?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andy McDonald. I'm the UK and Ireland Country Manager for Audiocodes. I've worked in the unified communications and contact centre marketplace for in excess of 25 years, and 15 of those years were working in service providers dealing with large complex requirements. So for me, I think the modern workplace symbolises an environment that's dynamic, flexible, can meet everyone's needs while improving productivity and collaboration for organizations. And Microsoft Teams really is a great example of that sort of modern workplace solution. So it delivers an environment that enables flexible working across any location, whether that's my home office where I'm sitting today, or whether I'm traveling and meeting customers or working from one of our office locations. It really does enable me to work anywhere seamlessly.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. Hi there, everybody. My name is Tim Cook. I've been working at Colt now for nearly 20 years, and my current role is in the global strategic sales team, leading the team of cloud voice sales specialists. So I get to work in a very interesting area across the whole of Colt, looking at the modern workplace type solutions. And for me, the modern workplace is an ecosystem of applications that optimize the working environment for employees to be effective in any location and at any time, whilst understanding the limitations of the role activity of that individual as well. And in this case, I always think about surgeons. They still need to go to an operating theatre. They can't do it via Teams. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Hiscox. I'm the Partner Development Manager for Microsoft here at Colt. I've been in this sort of office and online modern workplace environment since I was at Microsoft for 7 years. In the latter part of that, I was working in the Office 365 development team. So I bring sort of that Microsoft understanding around Teams, hopefully, to this conversation. And I do think it's very important, to Tim's point, to think not just about the modern workplace in terms of the knowledge worker and how these modern collaboration and communications tools have enabled hybrid working for us all, the kind of thing we're doing all of the time. But the conversation has to include frontline workers. And those same collaboration and communications tools can support them in the work that they do through usually mobile devices, but also our seemingly impossibly connected environment that enable them to do their jobs much more effectively and often more safely than they would otherwise.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. My name's Ollie at LuWare. So LuWare are a customer service app for Microsoft Teams. I manage the relationship between Colt and LuWare. I think, obviously, modern workplace has been around for a while, but I think it was really kind of brought into the spotlight when COVID hit. And there's been interesting developments since then. So I think when the pandemic hit, organizations just use whatever they could get their hands on to fit an immediate requirement. Okay, so there wasn't a lot of time to put a great deal of kind of strategy into that. And now in the years kind of gone, we've now got a chance to actually develop a bit more of a modern work strategy. And I think that should be based around an ecosystem of apps that complement each other and symbiotically coexist. So I think an organization should be thinking about how they communicate, where they hold their customer information, what office apps they use, and then choosing an ecosystem to kind of fit those requirements.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Is there potential for automation in a voice network? And if so, have you seen it in action anywhere?
So I'd like to try to start with that question. So for Audiocodes, automation sort of would span a few primary areas for us, those being contact center, meeting productivity, automating provisioning, and enhancing data management. So if I sort of unpack those areas quickly for you. In terms of contact center automation, we're seeing a big uptake in agent automation, and that's really helping businesses transform their customer experience. And I think with these new technologies, such as our voice AI or Voca, CIC contact center for Microsoft Teams, it's all about improving customer experience. And that means enabling the customer to get the outcome they want in the easiest way, quickly, and then move on with their daily lives. We've got lots of examples of automation there. If we were to look at meeting productivity, we've got a meeting insight service that sits on calls, listens to your meetings, records them, transcribes them, then uses ChatGPT to automatically summarize the meeting, which for me has really helped and changed my day-to-day, gets me away from having a notebook at the side of me and making notes all the time. Then if we were to sort of look from a management perspective of teams, we have automated the provision of direct routing. Obviously, we've got Operator Connect Accelerate and Zoom Provider Exchange. So driving that growth of unified comms applications needs automation at the core. And then if we were to think about managing all of that in the day two environment, so Audiocodes have taken a sort of a long, hard look at our portfolio of products. It's quite extensive, and we've got automation at the core. And that helps to help organizations reduce human error, expedite service delivery, and enhance network performance. And again, overall, it's all about customer experience. So being able to see the quality of quality of experience of a voice call, and a help desk seeing that and seeing where the problem lies, gets customers to have the best possible experience they can with their ecosystem. And with all that automation, what that means is tasks that were normally performed manually by very highly skilled network administrators can now be automated. It then helps them to free their time up to go and do some of the more complex tasks that their sort of skills and capabilities are best serviced doing. So what we've got in our portfolio is automation around provisioning, configuration, real-time network monitoring diagnostics, performance optimization and troubleshooting. And then we do a huge amount of work with Colt. We're very proud about our relationship. And what we've done, we've woven all of that good automation together with hypervisors and the SD-WAN environment that Colt provide. Tim, I can see you talking. I think you've taken that.
Yeah, I hit the mute button. There was some noise around. I forgot to take it off, but thanks for that, Andy. So absolutely right. There's lots of potential for automation in an organization's voice network, and it can be used for the advancement of things like network operations, provisioning services, monitoring of voice quality, general maintenance capabilities, etc., etc. But a key area we see for optimization is around advanced analytics for voice services. These can be enabled to give advanced insights into an organization's call traffic profiles, such as the call patterns, customer behaviors, the service qualities that are offered. These tools can analyze large volumes of data in real time, which really gives an organization the intelligence to create actions that will improve their performance and their customer experience. Another area that's absolutely key to everybody is voice network security, and implementing automated threat detection and access control mechanisms can create a proactively secure network. And these will mitigate risks such as unauthorized access or fraud. And also we see the potential benefits in automation, including things like optimized operations, reducing cost, and improved customer experience, whilst also delivering that high quality voice services wraparound. Cool. Ollie, I think it's over to you.
Oh, so sorry about that. So, I think when we look at this from a customer service or customer experience scenario, I think the best automations are those where the customers don't realize that there's automation happening. So yes, we can think about, and we will talk about tools like AI. But I think to start simple is probably the best place. So if we think about customer outcomes, we don't want our customers waiting to have their calls answered. It's a really simple one. So we can use automation to make sure callers are fed to the queues where there are actually users available. And if we have all of our users in one place like Teams, we can actually tell pretty accurately if those users are available. So things like availability routing is a great place to start. We can also use other information that we get from our ecosystem, like our CRM system. So if we know that somebody is a VIP caller, or we know that somebody is in an advanced stage of an opportunity, and we want to handle that call in a slightly different way, again, it still goes to a real human being, but we just use that information from our modern workplace ecosystem to present that call to the right user. And when that call is delivered to the user, we make sure that that person has the right information in front of them so they can handle that call as effectively as possible. So I'd say, yeah, keep it simple first. If we've all had experience where we've been speaking to a chat bot that's automated and has auto answers, is not giving us the answers we want, that can create a bad experience. However, if we use some kind of small tricks to get that call to the right person as quickly as possible, that's going to give the best kind of value to the customers.
So complexity, legacy systems, and employee flexibility in our research have been the crucial factors that have held businesses back from preparing for the future. Where should IT managers start to make the most of automation in a voice network? To you again, Ollie, I think.
So I think that I've talked a little bit about strategy. I think starting with a strategy is really important, and that should be from the ground up. So thinking about the basics first. So thinking about connectivity. So obviously, nearly every organization has remote workers. So how are we going to connect those workers together, whether that's via tools like SD-WAN. And then once we've decided how we're going to connect those users together, we need to choose a UCaaS platform so everyone can communicate. The obvious choice there is Teams, but obviously there are others out there. Once you've chosen a UCaaS platform, we need to decide how we connect that to the PSTN network. So there are lots of different options there now. You have direct routing, Operator Connect, Colt have offerings for those options. You could even go down the calling plans route for something more simple. So once you've kind of built those foundations, this is where you can start building in some of the automations that we've spoken about before, and harnessing the information that we have about our customers in a smarter way. But it's not really possible to do that until you've kind of built those foundations.
So, Ollie, I think you raised some really good points there. And Olivia, this is a great question. I think Audiocodes are quite well placed to provide some feedback in this area. We've got a 30-year heritage as an organisation in both the UC and contact centre space, and nearly 10 years of working with Microsoft. So we understand the complexities required in making these changes. So before sort of unpacking the automation piece, I think what I'd like to do is quickly talk about the business drivers that organisations are going to look for when putting in place a new unified comms or CX solution. I think one of the things that we see being very prevalent is flexibility for employees to retain and attract the best talent. They need a flexible environment that's going to support that work anywhere culture. And most legacy systems just don't have the capability to provide those key success criteria for any project we're seeing at the moment. So we're also seeing different types of organizations. Some may be small and have relatively simple unified comms or contact center requirements, all the way up to large multinationals. And it's not complex. There's probably lots of different things that need to be taken into account, understood, unpicked, probably 20 years plus of evolution that's happened with those organizations. So making a change for large organizations generally has a higher level of complexity. But Colt and Audiocodes have got a history of doing these projects, both large and small, can really help make that simple and easy. I think one of the best ways to do that is with a bit of process and procedure, putting some structure around these projects. So none of these projects are insurmountable. We've seen some very complex things, and we've got a heritage of delivering these projects on time within the customer's expectations. And what we do is work with Microsoft to do things like funded workshops to help identify business needs, the risks, and define the process of transitioning. And as I said, both Colt and Audiocodes can deliver those workshops for your organization. So coming back to the question about automation, we're seeing automation across the whole ecosystem. So and this is from Microsoft Teams. So from our session border controllers that are a backbone of our business, down to user management, so day two management of users, and creating some simplification to ensure that the platform's managed efficiently and effectively and without the need to know PowerShell. And then things like device management. We've got a range of our own handsets and video MTRs. Plus, we can help manage EPOS and Jabra headsets within our ecosystem. So providing that complete wraparound of automation is important. And I'm proud of the service that Colt and Audiocodes have delivered to many customers with seamless integration that will really help you sort of modernize your existing infrastructure and adopt Microsoft Teams.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. I think, every organization suffers from a layer of complexity. You look at your own organizations, et cetera, et cetera. And when we were setting out on this path to investigate customer experience and so forth, we did some research which looked into complexity within organizations, specifically around the customer experience area, and what it leads to for organizations in terms of difficulties in delivering the level of service they wish to. So we found that in the contact center environment, the more applications that an agent gets loaded with leads to downstream issues in terms of customer experience. And the optimal number, or the maximum number of applications where it started to overload an agent and make a business complex, was around about 5. After 8, it increased the complexity significantly and was a significant detriment to the business. And the knock-on effect was this, that the agents were harder to train up, harder to skill up, longer to become more effective, and effectively drove up costs because you had to retain those people. And in most contact center environments, the Great Resignation and people moving around are fairly dynamic, and they flow like water to the best wages and also the least complex job. So this was really making it hard for the contact centers to retain their staff. And we found this was ubiquitous across the whole of Europe in any operational environment. The more applications, the more complex, the harder it was to retain people. So one of the findings was very much looking at the recommendations that we would put in place, and that would be to sort of take the complexity out by adopting a cloud-first strategy, use applications that have cloud-first infrastructure, and open APIs to bond easily to core voice platforms. And that helped engineer out some of the complexity and improve customer experience. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree, Tim. And I mean, everyone's stressed the complexity of existing enterprise deployments that have grown over time. And I'd make 2 points. And one of them I want to stress because it follows on from what Andy said in terms of preparation. As I say, the development of enterprise communications and collab tools, it was kind of point solutions bought over time to satisfy a particular business requirement, and they weren't integrated necessarily. And so as time has gone on and it's got worse and worse, some of those platforms, infrastructures do now seem almost impossibly complex, and to unravel them to a more strategic approach fulfilled by fewer vendors rather is definitely challenging. And I think the goal is easy, simple, less complexity, less cost for the employer, and a better experience for your end user or your agent in the case of contact center. But it's that journey that does seem fraught with the risk of change. And that's, again, something I suppose we all know that business leaders and people who are signing off these projects definitely do not like. And I think Andy talked about the planning workshops. I mean, I'm the Microsoft development manager here, and those workshops, I think they're underutilized by customers. And I would stress they are structured in a way by Microsoft to absolutely draw out and finesse all of the problems that might be in the future of any of these projects underway, and then mitigate those potential risks before you even start the investment. And they're so structured because they are taken from proven examples of big deployments where they had to move from on-prem complicated voice environments to a cloud-first collaboration tool like Teams and working with the likes of Audiocodes and LuWare. The second point I'd make is, and it's actually probably more important in my mind, is don't forget the people aspect of all of these changes. We've all said it before, I'm sure, technology is actually quite easy when you think about it. It's the people that are involved that are making things difficult and sometimes the more challenging aspect. And I mean, I suppose that's a bit unfair, because if you involve your people, your end users, your agents right from the start, they can be a big help, and absolutely they can guarantee the success of a project that otherwise might not be successful, and you might not see the return on investment or the return on user experience and your customer experience that you expected when you sort of dreamt up the plan. So I think change management, is what Microsoft would call it, is a central pillar to the success of any of these deployments we've been talking about, and technologies such as Teams and LuWare combined for your customers. So do think about the people, get them involved, hire a change management director and make them integral from the very, very first point of project kickoff when you're envisaging what your future tools will look like.
And where does the customer experience fit into these strategies? Have customer needs evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, I think that certainly there are many more kind of communication channels that are becoming much more prevalent nowadays, and this is especially true in younger generations. However, I'd say it's driven by definitely convenience. So consumers are going to go to the channels that are most convenient for them. But I think that what's often overlooked is consumers will often go to the channels where they think they can get the best experience. And obviously everyone has their preferred channels, but if I know I can't contact somebody by WhatsApp, but I can give them a phone call and I can get a good experience there, I still think that's going to give a good customer experience. So I would say that it's much better to do some channels well than try to go and cover the whole omni-channel. And the best experiences are still going to be delivered by your users, by your employees. Okay, those are the users that can support a customer in a difficult time when they need support. They're the customers that can provide. They're the users that can provide empathy. They can provide humor. They can provide upselling opportunities. That's very difficult to get in other channels other than voice. So I'd like to bang the voice a little bit, the drum a little bit for voice, because it often gets overlooked, and I still think that's the best way to deliver that valuable customer experience.
Yeah, so Ollie, I think you have some interesting points there. And for me, I think everyone's tolerance expectation has changed over the last few years in terms of experience when calling into a contact center. We're all customers. We've all got quite a low threshold for wading through multiple levels of an IVR, pressing 1, pressing 2 to get an outcome. And I think talking with our end customers, what we see is sort of a persona-based approach, trying to understand what outcomes different personas will want to get through their contact centers. Some maybe text-based communications, some maybe pure voice communications, or some don't really mind as long as it's quick and simple and they can walk away with the outcome they desired. And I think with regard to things like voice AI that you mentioned there, Ollie, actually having the intelligence built into bots to understand when somebody's getting frustrated in that automated process and routing them through to a human agent is an important part of the experience. So I think for Audiocodes, how can we go and help sort of achieve that for customers? I've got a few quick examples for you. I think a couple of those, and they're very quick and easy to implement. Doing things like click to call. So we've got WebRTC capability in our portfolio. So you can embed a click to call in a website or into a mobile application, whether it's iOS or Android. So when the end customer clicks that link, the call arrives in the contact center. The end customer is pre-authenticated and arrives at the contact center with all the context of where they were in the website or in the application. Meaning the agent is best placed to serve those questions. The caller actually doesn't have to wade through all that pre-authorization and process to actually get their question raised. So it helps with simplicity. Putting in conversational IVR, so voice intelligently enabling the IVR. So as an example, we can do that very quickly with Voca. You can see in front of any contact center environment. We can have it running in less than a day and provide a graphical interface for customers to be able to manage and change the call flows very quickly in a graphical way. And then sort of finally, it's more sort of looking retrospectively into what's happened within a business. So we've got a portfolio of call recording capabilities that have transcription and analytics. And that allows calls to be recorded and then data mined in the future to really understand customer journey. Because it's great that we think we're delivering a good customer journey, but there's always ways to improve. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, thanks, Andy. Absolutely. There's been something that's happened recently that's changed all of our thoughts processes, the way we work. And, since the pandemic, our expectations of interactions have changed. Our needs have changed. The whole market's changed since that happened. But, in the old days, business technology was ahead of personal technology. You would go to your bank, they'd have all the data centers, they'd have all the equipment, and it would be at such a high level above the individual user case. Now, all individuals have multiple apps, smartphones, I have a fridge that can order food from the web, et cetera, et cetera. And we're all used to having applications for banking, health, technology, online shopping. And we're used to very high levels of customer service from those apps with instant access and instant experiences. And those companies that I mentioned at the beginning that invested heavily in that type of legacy technology and infrastructure also have legacy data technologies as well, and data lakes and information. And they're finding it hard to compete with companies born in the cloud because they don't have any of that drag, that clawback of that technology that's baked in a hard way. And the customer experience can be visibly different between those two types of customers. There's another point around this, which is now customers are just used to changing their applications. I change applications on my smartphone on a regular basis. If it doesn't meet my needs or if there's something else that comes along that's better, I'll flip across and I'll start to use that. So my attitudinal processes change. And for me, and this is the real kicker, is that our most humanistic form of communication is voice. And voice is not data in a way. Those voice packets need to arrive in the right order for it to be understood. And if it's not in the right order, it can't be understood. If it's not clear, it can't be understood. So that oral quality is exceptionally needed for being able to be understood in your customer service environment. So if companies don't get it right as well, this is the other point, is that referring back to my flipping of apps is that I may become a non-loyal customer if I'm not getting what I need. And if they can't achieve this easily, they start to have erosion in their customer base and start to fighting on price. And no one wants to get into that sort of argument. So yeah, absolutely. Companies need to change. The way we service needs to change. And the acceleration for people with legacy technologies really needs to be the forefront of their mind. Yeah. Thank you.
I agree. Yeah. It's a bit of an obvious answer to the obvious question, actually, isn't it, Olivia? All the channels which we engage with our customers, and they engage with us, they're increasing all of the time. Certainly, there's a new app coming online for social seemingly every year that people are participating in. And yes, customers are getting more and more demanding. And we know that because ultimately we're all customers, right? And I don't know about you, but as I grow old and grumpy or grumpier, I notice these things even more. So, organizations will continue to have to focus on customer experience if they want that to be a differentiator. It's almost a de facto. I'd go back to what we were saying earlier, that to get that right, it's two things, actually. It's the planning. We talked about it earlier, Andy and I, about planning workshops, making sure your setup is correct. But also it's customer sort of success. Keep on looking back at what you've done and how you're doing with your customer, focusing on your net promoter score. That's kind of really, really important. And if I was to say one point about customer experience, again, it's from my own personal experience, the really difficult pivot point in that customer interaction is where AI, and I think we're going to come on to that, is involved with a bot, let's say, and you're doing okay and it's answering all the questions you want, but then it gets difficult. And it's that pivot point where you want to talk to a human being, that empathy that Ollie talks about. And Tim, in fact, with everyone's mentioned it, voice is ultimately the goal where, you get that interaction with a human who understands what your problem is. And more importantly, how your temperature is rising. So that's the difficult bit for vendors to get right. You've got to concentrate on your planning when you're doing it and the setup of your contact center and your engagement with your customers. Because as we all know, we're all consumers and we all have different levels of patience when we're in that, customer experience situation. So yeah, it's obvious, but it's the truth.
Thanks, Tim. And following on from what you were saying there, there's no escaping talking about AI ever since ChatGPT was released last year. So where do you see the technology taking communications in the near future?
Interesting question. Feels a bit like tomorrow's world. I think personally, I look at what ChatGPT is going to bring. There's lots of interesting things. I mean, you can think personally, the productivity gains mean that your emails are going to be done, your social posts are going to be done, going to handle with some of my calls, and then I'm going to have more time to go and play golf. I don't think that's probably going to be the reality of it. I think I'd probably want to provide a cautionary note before I talk about what we're doing as a business with ChatGPT. So it's not something that can be trusted blindly. What we're seeing and how we're using ChatGPT, you do need to review what it provides you back as an output and don't blindly trust it. So it's sort of read and see what it's providing back. It can misrepresent the facts. It's not necessarily always factual tool. But for Audiocodes, I mean, I'm really passionate about working for the business. We're very tech driven, always innovating and bringing new technology to the marketplace. We've got a large R&D team that enable that to happen. We've already brought our first product to market that leverages the power of ChatGPT, and that's our Meeting Insights service. So we've had Meeting Insights for about the last 18 months, 2 years, and it's a service that records your business calls, so your team's meetings, and then we'll transcribe the meeting, show you the video and the slides that were being presented at the time. But for me, it's really gone on steroids now. So adding ChatGPT does something really cool. It gets me away from my notebook and pen, recording the actions. So at the end of the call, it instantly summarizes it, and I can send that out to my customers very quickly and easily. If I've missed a meeting, I'm never going to have the hour to maybe join the meeting I missed, but Meeting Insights means you can jump into the meeting, you can see the actions that were assigned and say, oh, I've had 2 or 3 actions, and jump to the points of the call where you picked up actions when you weren't attending the call, let's say. So I think ChatGPT's got a lot of cool things it's going to bring. I think we need to be cautious as well and see how things evolve.
Thanks, Andy. No, I think we're all looking forward to the idea that AI will give us more leisure time, but every time one of these new inventions come along, I seem to have less leisure time. So we'll have to see how that's going to pan out. So you're right, there's no escaping the AI conversation. It's already had a significant impact on individuals and organizations. And some of that's really exciting and some of that's really quite scary. The bit of scary that I think about is, our children, how will they have a role to play in the modern world as everything is becoming automated and changing in front of us? But there is no doubt there's some very effective applications using AI already, such as natural language processing, improved customer services, multilingual communications. And, you're right. The bit that excites me the most is around the capabilities of the virtual assistant, the ability to organize and optimize my day, major benefits in my productivity, etc. And we see this coming into play every day with applications like Teams and the Viva portfolio, offering consolidated actions, as you mentioned, at the end of each meeting, and those transcripts that, improves the accuracy of what we're doing on a regular basis. And each month that goes by, you see it improving as it learns. Yeah. And on this is my final thought. If every organization is using the same base AI, is how are they going to differentiate their brand in their bots to do their bidding? I know they can build this, but it's just making sure that it's accurate, it reflects the organization, and it reflects the brand going forward. So, cool.
Yeah, from my perspective, we're already seeing AI working for us in more and more ways. So it will increase without a doubt, even if it's just from helping with proactive suggestions on your route planning on your journey to work, because they know where the roadworks are today, or suggesting in a chat message a very simple answer to speed up the process of a very quick chat conversation. I mean, personally, I'm finding myself more and more clicking on the answer it suggests because they've got it right. So yeah, the answer is, of course, it'll be more and more prevalent, and already with Microsoft in their Office 365 pilot, which is going to be embedded within that Teams and Office 365 environment. Microsoft are harnessing the power of natural language to give us what, on the face of it, look like super smart personal assistants, for which we can take all the credit for the work that they do behind the scenes, gathering data, as Andy pointed out, creating PowerPoint presentations for us that we literally have to just fine tune, and giving us meeting notes. So, yeah, all of those things are going to be super useful. There's obviously some concerns. They're well documented in the press, but I think it's it's a long way before technology such as AI will replace that real sense of human empathy. Again, we talked about it in the contact center when the chatbots, got to the end of its suggestions, and you just kind of need a human being, because what you need is not quite there in his dialogue box. So we're going to still need humans. Tim, to your point, I think your kids are safe in terms of their jobs for the foreseeable future. But yeah, embrace it, because it does really, really help, as Andy said, in your day-to-day activity. It makes you super, super productive in a way that you weren't before.
Great. Thanks, Tim. I think there are some really common themes there to those answers. I think the common theme is that yes, AI can provide kind of voice response and chatbots, but at this point, the value is going to be assisting humans, assisting users, and making their lives easier. I would say that when we think about customer experience, often it's kind of framed in a scenario where the user is trying to handle a complaint or a negative interaction, when actually what humans can do is actually provide a really positive interaction and a really positive experience, which is something that the AI is going to struggle to do. Yes, it could certainly be used to take away some of the mundane tasks as well as automation, but these aren't really where you build brand loyalty. Brand loyalty is built with positive interactions, and I think that's where AI is probably going to struggle a little bit, at least for the time being. And then just kind of picking up on a point Andy made, OpenAI and ChatGPT is often confidently wrong. If you ask what OpenAI what your job title is, if it doesn't know, it will make something up. It might be close, but close isn't close enough. So we organizations spend a lot of money, a lot of time investing in their customer experience and their brand. And then this can be kind of ruined quite quickly with the wrong answer. And that is dangerous. So as Andy said, yeah, approach with caution. It can be very expensive to implement an AI solution. It's also very expensive to kind of build out a proper customer service team with agents, and all of that can go away pretty quickly from an incorrect answer. that's generated.
Thanks, Ollie. And finally, if you were a customer, how would you modernize your workplace with Colt and its partners?
So for me, and I'm going to say this, I'm really proud of the relationship between Colt and Audiocodes. It's many, many years deep. We've integrated the whole of our portfolio together with all of the different services such as SD-WAN, etc., and SIP services that Colt provide. That really gives a one-stop shop for customers to perform their team's transformation. It's backed up with lots of implementations that we've done with customers of all different sizes and needs of organizations. So we're a trusted, safe pair of hands for your team's migration. And that portfolio of services has sort of been woven together to ensure that all your requirements can be met, and it's underpinned by a world-class service. So a tier one service provider working with the industry-leading technology vendor in the Microsoft space. So a match made in heaven.
Right. Thanks, Andy. So yeah, I think just to answer this and where a starting point, I think it was already mentioned earlier, but it's the best starting point is getting internal stakeholder feedback and getting internal stakeholders on board. Whether it's a communications app, whether it's a CRM app, a ticketing app, you need the stakeholders on your side from the start. Okay. And then I think maybe even before that, a choice needs to be made about the ecosystem that you're going to live in. So we talk about the modern workplace, but it really is an ecosystem of apps, in my opinion. And if you're choosing some apps that are hosted in AWS, some apps that are hosted in Azure, some Google apps, then that's going to be really difficult to integrate those and mesh those apps together. So choose an ecosystem. Obviously, we would be a proponent of the Microsoft ecosystem, and then build your apps from there. So you can use, obviously, the Dynamics for a CRM as an example, Teams as a communications app, and then you've got OpenAI, which is obviously owned by Microsoft. You've got Power Automate to integrate those together and mesh those together. And there are lots of ways. Obviously, there are lots of technologies to use. I think the key in a successful implementation is choosing the right partner and choosing the right partner with the skills. So Colt can cover that broad range of connectivity, network, the PSTN, the Teams piece, the contact center piece. As in any scenario, too many cooks spoil the broth. So keeping it all with one partner that has that overarching kind of control and view is going to be really important. And the final thing I would say is, in an implementation, don't cut corners on consultancy and don't cut corners on adoption. You can have the Rolls Royce of technology, but if it's not implemented properly and users don't know how to use it, it's going to be doomed to fail. So invest on adoption, training, and the right implementation services.
Cool. Thanks, both Andy and I think you're entirely spot on with your summation there. I think one thing that's really important for people to think about when they're looking at cloud services is that it still is essentially an ecosystem of a data center, some servers, some applications, and some network that works together. You're just buying it in a package in a different way. So you need to look at who's in that partnership. And Colt is basically a global network and communication service provider, multiple capabilities to enhance the modern workplace. So if there's a digital transformation that's needed to be done, Colt can support you there. But there are many steps that needed to be completed logically to be successful, especially when you're starting to build a modernization roadmap. And what we're doing today here is very much looking at our partners and the variety of services that are offered from Colt, from LuWare, from Audiocodes, and our other networking partners that sit outside the voice ecosystem, and looking at the tools and security solutions, etc., that are available there. And what you see in front of you is a panel of experts that have an understanding of these ecosystems and how they interact, and basically an ability to match and align that with the customer need to the offerings that are available. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and finally, to kind of sum up, I'd go back to that previous conversation we had about planning and preparation. Colt are a modern workplace solutions partner with Microsoft. We've done all the qualifications to enable us to engage customers with an understanding of what that challenge would be. And many customers already know where they want to get to. But it's kind of as soon as they look under the hood that they have that kind of scary moment when they see all the challenges. So start with a conversation leading to a properly structured workshop. As I said, Colt supports that with Microsoft. Present the potential issues and remove all those terrors of the unknown. And you can start that engagement with your Colt relationship manager. But I would also make the point, and Ollie mentioned it, I can't stress it enough, get other people outside of the technical community within your organizations involved from day one as well. Get that change management, that people change management aspect as part of the project, and you'll be successful.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, all of you, for that. I'm just going to have a quick look and see what questions. We've got quite a few questions coming in at the moment. So if we start with this one, with Microsoft Technologies, I can build a bespoke solution from scratch. So why would I need to pay for these services? Ollie, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think so. So we've spoken a lot about the ecosystem, and the Microsoft ecosystem is a great example of lots of different elements. So you've got Teams, you've got Azure Communication Services, OpenAI, Power Automate, Power BI, Azure Microservices, and these are all great tools, but they're essentially a toolkit. So if you've got the development capacity to be able to spend probably years developing those, then go for it. But I would say your efforts and your money is going to be better spent choosing a specialist vendor that's got those skills in-house and that can package that together. And this is where, yes, all of those solutions are built in the cloud, but they're not SaaS offerings really. Okay, you need to provide your own updates, build it from scratch, use that toolkit. So the best money, I think, or the best way you can invest your money is by buying a SaaS product. So that's going to be fully supported. Upgrades are going to be rolled out regularly. Bug fixes will be rolled out regularly, and feature releases will be rolled out regularly. Because if you try and do that all yourself, it's a lot to manage, and time is probably spent better elsewhere.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ollie. Tim H., do you have anything to add to that one?
I mean, I think Ollie probably said most of it. I mean, my flippant response is, I like watching Coronation Street, but I don't want to go and build a television studio to do it. Back in the day, some of the older, longer in the tooth guys will remember we used to have teams of developers programming in COBOL, and they would, create databases perfect for your specific customers' requirement. And then the programmer who developed that application for you leaves the company, and goes to work somewhere else. And suddenly you're stuck with these applications that no one can support. You don't get that with SaaS. And actually, to Ollie's point, much of what we can get online in these tools is you can change it and you can adapt it, but the core processing and the core updates and the core support is all there, and you're purchasing, what you need when you need it, and with none of the big investments. So of course you get exactly what you want if you build it yourself, but you can get nearly what you want or as good as what you need online these days. That would be my point.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. Here's one more. I think it looks like this is probably for you, Andy. What do Audiocodes see as the primary changes in the UC and CX marketplace?
Oh, that's quite a big question. Okay, give me a second. I'll try to give a short answer to a big question. So I think there's probably three things going on that we really see across the two sort of marketplaces. So automation, I think we've talked a lot about it on this call, but it's for us as a business, the work that we've done with Colt around the platform that provides direct routing and Operator Connect, that's there for connectivity into teams, but layering in business applications. So our Voca contact center, our call recording service, SmartTap and Mia, all of these being sort of business applications being woven together with automation for all the outcomes we talked about during the call has really become very significant, because it's about providing the ease to consume. And in terms of ease to consume, that probably leads me on into the next sort of element, which is a real shift from where our business was, let's say 3 or 4 years ago, where we sold as on a CapEx basis. I think everybody, or a large number of organizations and customers and our partners have all shifted to an OpEx model. So I think that's really important. So you can consume as you use and adapt to fit your business needs. So that's another change that we were seeing in both marketplaces. And then I think for me, the thing that's really accelerating is contact center transformation. And I think the two trends within contact center transformation, and I think during the pandemic, what had happened was lots of Teams was adopted, but contact center was it was too complex to do any big changes within those environments. Now we've come out of the pandemic and we're working through those more complex applications. There's a real change happening. So I think the two things we're seeing there are agent automation, and it has to be got right. We've talked about on the call. Poor automation that leaves you trapped with an automated bot is not good. You need to be able to quickly identify any customer frustration and route it directly to an agent so you get the best outcome for your customer. So that's one piece. The other piece is around Teams contact centers. So you can look at the analysts' information about the growth in this area, and it comes from sort of two streams: the normal formal contact centers that we all know and love, but there's so many informal use cases. I think there's a lot of capability out there in the marketplace. We've talked about what LuWare can do, talked about what Audiocodes can do, but there's so many choices for customers to go and look at how they can support the customer interactions outside of those formal contact centers, because it's all about customer experience, and not everyone's calling that formal contact center to get the outcome they want. Was that a short enough answer to that big question?
Yeah, Andy, it was fine. Really good. I've got loads of information on this area as well. You know, the weaponization of agents within a cyber contact center, with technology advances, the quality of the equipment, the visual, the audio quality, etc. But the biggest thing that I see is very much the enablement of people to locate their workforce anywhere. So if you're in the north of Scotland, your previous jobs were in tourism, you can now work in a contact center in a technology environment from wherever you like with no limitation. And I think that's a big global enabler for people in this particular environment, access to a much larger workforce. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks both for that. I don't think we're going to have time for another question. So, but any questions that are in the Q&A section, we'll come back to you on those following this session. I'd just like to close by saying it's obviously a very complex thing that we're dealing with here, but whatever step you are in your journey to the modern workplace, maybe you've already started it and want to evaluate the steps you've taken so far, or maybe you're just starting out. A really good place to start is with a consultation with one of our voice experts. We've got a link in, I believe it's in the chat, I'm not sure, but there should be a link, and we'll certainly follow on with it as well, so that you can book a consultation directly. That will be just an initial informal conversation, followed by a much more in-depth modern communication workshop, discovery workshop. So please take advantage of that. As I say, the link will be in the chat, and it'll also be followed on with a follow-up email. But thank you so much to the panelists and to everybody for joining this session. I think it's been really, really good. So thank you very much.
Yes,
Thanks, Olivia.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.